Welcome into the Joe Moore Award first ever live stream. I am Jenny Dell. I'm thrilled to be joined by the Joe Moore Award team captain, Mr. Aaron Taylor himself. Make sure everyone that's watching right now, like, follow, subscribe below. And AT, we got so many new fans joining us right now. Let's start with this. So we're going to keep it very simple to start things off. What is the Joe Moore Award, AT?
That's a great question, Jenny. And simply put, it's basically the Heisman for fat guys, except for instead of honoring an individual, we're honoring five tough dudes. And that's really was the genesis of what this award was about when we started over 10 years ago, was talking about the room. It was walk-ons, it was all-Americans, it was everything. It was the guys, it was about us. And that's why our tagline is, I am because of us. So I wanted to do something to preserve the honor and legacy of Coach Joe Moore, somebody that meant so much to so many, who was extremely qualified at getting us to be the best versions of ourselves, sent 52 dudes to the NFL in 18 seasons. Never had a senior starter at Notre Dame that didn't at least have a cup of coffee in the NFL. He was the best there ever was. But again, his secret sauce was getting us to believe in ourselves and making sure that we knew what the standard was and could adhere to it. So when I went to ESPN's page and started looking up college football awards, I believe there were 26 at the time. Every single one was an individual award. And that was the light bulb moment for us. I said, we got to do something that represents the entire unit so that we can shine a spotlight on the big uglies and the brotherhood that binds them. So we're the only group or unit award in college football. We watch film because we got to evaluate everything tackle to tackle. And it's been a labor of love, but man, has it been fun.
The big uglies, they need some love too, AT.
That's what I'm
Right?
saying. Like the big uglies are big, pretty. It's like being chunky but hunky. You know what I'm saying?
You're basically describing yourself right now.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you said it. Didn't want to throw my shoulder out.
I
But
mean, it's true.
it's been fun, man. Like I'll say this, and we're going to do kind of a state of the union on what we're seeing in offensive line play. The thing I think I'm most proud about is how we've embodied the very principles that this award was created to represent. We're all about toughness. We're all about going the extra mile, working together, giving great effort, being impeccable in our process, challenging each other, and in the end, getting this big sucker across the line. It's the biggest trophy in sports. It weighs almost 1,200 pounds. It travels in two 800-pound crates. It takes 5 to lift it. It also takes 5 to earn it. I just wish I wasn't one of the 5 because that son of a gun is heavy now.
Why did you decide to have such a big trophy? Was that your call? A group
It,
effort?
it, it kind of, we were thinking about, like, I didn't even know where to start. Like, how do you make a trophy? What's that process look like? So I talked to this guy, Jerry McKenna, who's got 7 busts in Canton, did Holtz's trophy at Notre Dame, the Four Horsemen, the Virgin Mary on campus. I mean, he's award-winning sculpturist. And we started talking about it. We're like, everything about this award is different and it's big. And not because we want to be different or we want to be big. It just is what it is. So that was kind of the genesis of let's create something that's going to mean something to these men that play the position and the men that coach them, so that when we reveal this in the on-campus surprise, really intimate award ceremony, that it'll be a moment that they'll never forget. And we've delivered on that. I want to give credit to the Buckus Award because that's where I got the idea to do the surprise on-campus visit, because I saw Eric Kendricks, UCLA linebacker, when Dick Buckus walked out with that trophy in his hand. Man, he started crying. Some of his teammates started crying. And that was basically the year that we were going to launch. And I said, that's the moment I want to create for those dudes, because I was on the rubber chicken circuit. I knew what it was like during bowl practice and all those things to be able to do that. So it's been a labor of love, but man, it's been fun. And this is the first thing that we get to do where the cream starts to rise to the top and we get to talk about it.
That's exactly it. We're here to announce live for everyone the Joe Moore Award mid-season honor roll. Just really taking that first look at who could possibly take home that massive award that we were just talking about at the end of the season. And for all of you watching, don't forget, comment below. I'm paying attention to all the comments. We'll pin your comments on the screen, answer questions live. We want to make this super interactive. But Aaron, the first question, it will come from me. because that's what I do. So take me through the makeup of the committee, the criteria that you're evaluating and choosing these teams. How does it kind of all play out?
Credibility was rule number one right off the top. We knew that we had to be the most credible award in college football because that's who Joe Moore was. The problem was we just didn't have a process. So we don't have the luxury of looking at statistics. There's no box score for us to go look at. There's no highlight rips and packages that we can go see. We had to watch game film. So because of that, I knew I had to have people that played the position or coached the position or had some direct tie. And there's a couple select media members like scouts and other people that lived this 365 that qualified. So it's by far the most credible group of voters that we have in this award space, and it's humble. And nobody's perfect, ourselves included, but I'll stand and die on the top of the hill of our process that it's the most thorough that's out there out of necessity. Again, we're not doing things like willingly. It's because it requires us to watch the film. So what are we looking for? Well, in year one, I pulled over 800 years of playing and coaching experience, and I asked a simple question. Give me the top 3 characteristics of the best offensive line units you played for, coached, or watched. Man, it was this word cloud of all these different intangibles coming back that you've heard to describe the position. But when I distilled it down, we came up in year one with 5. And those were toughness, effort, teamwork, technique, and finishing. And the reason I stumbled there is because in year 2, we added consistency because the inaugural winner of our award was Alabama. And that was with Derrick Henry. That was the year they won the Heisman Trophy and the national championship. Tremendous line, and they bludgeoned people. One of the most physical units we've ever had, but they were also inconsistent. They led the country in tackles for loss, and that wasn't okay with us. So we revised that process as we went. We added consistency, and those are the 6. So I want to show the audience, this is the grading sheet that we use when I'm evaluating offensive lines. This is organs here. So toughness, there's some different words under there that you can maybe read to see. I'll try to read these backwards. Attack defenders, effort is, takes no stuff, competes to the whistle, teamwork, communicates, looks through one set of eyes, switches games well, consistency. And we've tweeted this out, and I'll share this with the audience afterwards, especially if there's young offensive line coaches in high school or players that want to know what the standard is to be elite at our position, technique and finishing. So we'll get into these as we go through. I've taken my notes. I need them because we watch so much tape, but let's get into it, man.
Let's get into it. So toughness, effort, teamwork, technique, finishing, and then adding in the consistency aspect of it all. I know that there's a lot of folks that are watching at home right now. They want to know, how can I ever win this award one day? Well, those are the attributes that you need. So we're going to have a few guests, surprise guests, join us shortly. So be sure to stay tuned for that. And we're going to get to group these teams together. So no order here, but let's start first with 5 teams from the group of 5. So AT, take it away.
All right. The group of 5 teams in alphabetical order here are the Air Force Falcons, the Army Black Knights, the Navy Midshipmen, the Memphis Tigers, and the Tulane Green Wave. What you notice right away is that all 3 academies on there. And I want to start with the Army Black Knights because they earned this award last year. And that's a really important point of distinction because nobody wins this award. We don't give this award to the units. There's a unit that earns this award by best representing the criteria, and we merely recognize that. And last year's winner, clear, head and shoulders above all other groups, were the Army Black Knights. They were by far the most consistent. They were by far the ones that finished the most, and they were by far the most physical. So this year, Mike Vidi's unit has done an excellent job. They've used the same starting lineup in every game, which was the case a year ago. They're second in the FBS in rushing with 280-plus yards a game. But listen to this. They face an average of 8.9 defenders in the box on designed runs. That's the highest rate in the FBS, higher than Air Forces, higher than Navies. And that's critical because for us, you got to move the ball when you need to move the ball, but also when you want to move the ball. And one of Joe Moore's sayings was, there's no greater joy in life than moving a man from point A to point B against his will. And when you got 9 suckers in the box, you got to move people against their will, and Army's done a great job. So the criteria that they embody the most is effort. They strain, they compete to the whistle, they look for work, They'll accelerate on contact and double teams. And the notes I had in the games I watched were Charlotte and FAU, plus all the other ones. These are the ones I took extensive notes on. And there's a difference between watching film and studying it. These are the two games that I studied. They're a physical unit that's coached and plays the game the way it was intended to be played and coached. They won the award last year with 5 seniors that started every game, starting over this year, and has already gotten better each week despite the uncharacteristic turnover issues they've had. Play 11, left guard 59, hustling to get in front of the football. Play 21, quarterback counter. Play side tackle rips up through to get the play side linebacker, but sees the puller pick him up, immediately rips his head inside to look for work. Not sure if the play side backer was his guy, but it's clear that VD coaches them well. Going on to the other criteria in the other games, it's just when you watch Army, it's a bunch of dudes that want to play the game the way that it was created to be played. Going on to Navy, to me, this is the academy that's playing the best at this point. Their offense is dynamic. They're throwing the football also. What's really impressive with all 3 academies, including Air Force, is how much improved they are at pass protection. It's been a remarkable job this season watching these units come alive and become diverse. And what's happened is in the academies, they've had to become more diverse because they've joined conferences. So they don't get the benefit and the luxury of only playing teams once and that team never really seeing the triple option. So they've had to become varied and add some passing game and some traditional run concepts like power, counter, inside zone, outside zone. They put a lot of window dressing on it, and it looks a lot of different ways, but it's football 101 through and through. So those are the units for Army right out of the gate. For Air Force, they're coached by Steve Labotsky. Air Force has had the same starting lineup in all 6 games. That speaks to consistency. Air Force is 4th in the nation in rushing with 276 yards per game. They lead the Mountain West in 3rd down conversions and on 4th down conversions at over 50% and over 75% respectively. We call those gotta have it situations. And those are some of the things that they do well. Going to Navy again, I'm just so impressed with what it is they do. Jay Guillermo's been their coach. Their criteria that they embody is toughness, effort, teamwork, consistency, technique, and finishing. All of the above. They get it done all the way across. Against Rice, play 27. Running back Brandon Chapman, the cyber operations major, made a spectacular one-handed catch that has nothing to do with the O-line, but the dude didn't have any gloves on, so I want to give him some love. And it highlights the fact that this dude, that Navy themselves are throwing, and that's the note. Their pass pro is much improved. So with some notes on Memphis and some notes on Tulane, I want to bring in Golic to give maybe 30 to 45 seconds on each unit because I've talked way too much.
Well, listen, AT, first off, very excited to be here. Excited to be here with you and Jenny. You've done a phenomenal job so far, and a phenomenal job shepherding all of us through to this award. But you're exactly right about what the service academies embody. As someone also got to play against them, the ruthless attention to detail and effort from these groups are uncommon. You cut on Navy, and everything is straight out of Teach tape. The angles are there. They hit their landmarks with an undying resolve to sell out for their teammates. And that's that 5 as 1 mentality that we talk about, right? 5 guys working as one to go out and get things done. So I think they've been an incredible example of that. You mentioned it's the triple option, but with so many spread elements into it now. But the triple on its own, a diverse scheme. You've got to execute a lot of things at a high level. That's that togetherness. That's that understanding, the toughness, the effort, the strain. And I'm with you, the improved pass pro. Living long enough to see Navy and the rest of the academies dropping back, throwing hands on folks and staying between the quarterback and their man is a beautiful sight to see. And AT, Tulane is another one I was really excited to talk about with this group. There's a couple of guys on this group here, 2 O-linemen on the team with the most pass blocking snaps, Jack Hollifield and Shadre Hurst. Shadre Hurst is a bad man. He's played guard. He's kicked out to tackle for them against Ole Miss, and he goes out there with bad intentions. And I kind of think that's the hallmark for this group here. They're an incredible group. Effort, toughness. They run a bunch of different stuff here. They're a great run and cut zone scheme, getting out, running, throwing their hats into the right place. But I mentioned they've played teams like Ole Miss. They've played quality competition. and they seem to up their game for that. They have an understanding that they got precious cargo with a darn good quarterback and some great skill players, and so they go and get after people in the run game, in the pass game. We always talk about, hey, can you find work? Can you make pass pro not passive but incredibly physical? And I think those guys in particular that I name check do a phenomenal job of getting after guys and making sure, hey, defensive linemen know it's not going to be an easy rep when you get to turn your ears back and go and rush the quarterback. We're going to try and hit you and hurt you. And I think Tulane does a phenomenal job of that. This is a unit that I think has always maximized their talent, gotten the most out of it, and this year's no exception.
Yeah, I love that, man. And they're coached by Evan Kissick. And I want to give some love finally with David Deal's unit at Memphis. They've been tremendous as well. They round out the group of 5. They lead the country with 22 total rushing touchdowns, and they rank 12th in the country in rushing offense. Really impressed with this unit and what it is they bring to the table. Deal's group has been really, really well coached and remarkable. So I really like their effort, their strain, and their technique. Their use of hands specifically, when they miss, they generally look to replace. And the use of hands is really the thing that I key in on because it's a small detail, but it's also the hardest thing to correct. And it's the most natural thing for offensive linemen to grab. But O-line play is about leverage. Up and down leverage, meaning pad level, and inside out leverage, meaning hands. If you want to move a man against his will, you got to be lower. Low man wins. So when we get scared as offensive linemen, our technique goes and we start getting grabby, the lobster claws, the safety nets. So to see somebody replace their hand if they don't win with initial leverage means they've worked on it and their coach pays attention to detail, and Deal's unit does that. If they're doing that well, it typically means that they're doing other things well as well. So that's typically a good tell early on if I'm seeing hand usage that is a unit that's well coached. And when we get to Cincinnati, that's the thing that jumped off the tape about them.
We're going to get to Cincinnati soon. Real quick, AT, after traveling for almost a decade with you, I just have this image of you with your body down as fast as you can. Just popping around. It's just when I see your face, it's what comes to mind.
It is. So. The knees don't bend nearly as well as they used to, JD. It's quite more of a stick figure at a 2-point stance, no matter what I do nowadays. But you're right. I used to get it back in the day.
It's so good. All right. I just got to shout out Jeff Schwartz. He's been super active in our chat. Jeff, we're reading it all.
Sure
if you have any questions, please put some goodies out there for us. And Mike, we also realize that, being the voice of the Big 12 on Turner and AT, I know how much tape he watches. When do you find the time to watch all this film?
I had a former offensive line coach that said it best once. We don't have lives. We sit around, we drink beer, and we watch cut-ups, and we send them to other offensive linemen, offensive line coaches. We sit around and eat chicken wings in the middle of the broadcast. So we don't have – Oh, I think you just pulled a chicken wing out of somewhere. It's very Pat Murphy of you to just start producing food out of nowhere, AT.
What are you eating?
I'm hungry, man. Here's the deal. When I'm not watching tape, I'm also a dad. This is my weekend at home. I'm only home 2 days a week, really a day and a half. So I had to get the kids. My daughter's inside doing her homework, eating garlic knots, and I got some wings trying to get dinner because I haven't eaten since 6 a.m. when I left New York. So this is just how we roll, man. We make it up on the fly.
Jenny, if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know, when AT says it's a labor of love. Like we get to do this. Sitting down and watching offensive line play is the fun part of the job. Everything else you got to go out there and look for. This is what most of this group has done their entire lives. And so to get a chance to do it and knowing the end result, like AT said, with the way that the offensive line community, these rooms, players, and coaches all value this award is pretty damn special.
It's
there's
pretty
a
damn special.
That somebody from Vegas said hot dogs are better than chicken wings.
Disagree.
Well, I'll say this. In general, yes, but what's going to sway the answer, and this is my hot take, it's got to be the right condiment, and there's only one right answer. So Vegas, let us know what you say. My answer is mustard.
Oh, wow. I thought you were going, first of all, no. Disagree.
No, you can't put ketchup on a hot dog.
Probably judge us. You got to put ketchup on a hot dog.
No,
Jenny, I'm with you.
Ketchup's to cover sins on bad stuff, just like barbecue is on ribs. You got to put mustard on there.
I'm with Jenny on this one. To me, I'm not going to be elitist when it comes to what we put on tube meat. I know what's going on inside of hot dogs, and it ain't nothing pretty. So if we're going to dress it up with whatever you need to get through that thing, go right ahead. I'm with you. Ketchup all the way.
My guy.
I'll
All
stick
right,
with wings for now while we rock through the Big 12.
I thought you were talking about condiments with wings, and I was like, is he going blue cheese or ranch?
Nah,
Which way
blue
is he going with
cheese.
this?
Got to go
Okay,
blue cheese.
I'm
The
cool with
stinky
that.
cheese.
I'm
only way
cool
to
with
go.
that. Well, let's keep this rolling. All right, we're gonna stay in your wheelhouse, Mike. We're gonna talk about the Big 12 now, and you guys mentioned Cincinnati already, the Bearcats, and also the Utah Utes. What did you see from these two units, Mike?
Yeah, I think starting with Cincinnati, Nick Cardwell, their offensive line coach, is someone that's been a great developer at the position at every stop that he's been at, someone whose work we're really familiar with. And AT mentioned it before. They play fearlessly. And what I mean by that is what he talked about, to go and try and hit your landmarks, even if the look is going to change, to go and throw your hands in pass protection the way you've been taught, consistent technique that you see across all five guys on that line. That takes guts, because it's hard to throw your hands when something bad can happen on the other side, but you're playing aggressive and doing what you're taught versus just grabbing and holding on for dear life. And so I think that group does that pretty consistently. Gavin Gerhardt, their center, is the heartbeat of this offensive line. He's the guy that they look to and the guy that runs the show up front. But I was just so impressed. This is an offense, and listen, we know with this group, they're going to run a bunch of outside zones. Scott Satterfield traces those routes back to the mountain in Appalachian State, so that's something they're used to. But I thought their consistency in executing that, they do a phenomenal job protecting. Cincinnati leads the Big 12, fifth nationally in rush yards per carry. They're second in the nation in yards per play, second in the Big 12 and eighth nationally in tackles for loss allowed. So they eliminate the bad stuff by being hardened and committed to their technique in a way that jumps out every time you cut them on.
Any love for Utah?
Oh, yes. By the way, Utah O-line coach Jim Harding. Well, Jenny, and Utah was the one that came into this year with a lot of fanfare because of their bookend tackles, right? Caleb Lamu, Spencer Fano, both guys that were projected before the season to be incredibly high draft picks. So everyone knew their names. But to me, the hallmark of this group is toughness, finishing, and consistency. I call them the Great Wall, because every time you turn on tape, they run a lot of gap scheme plays. They get their quarterback involved in the run game because he's a great athlete. And so they're able to do such a great job when they got those road white jerseys on of building that clear path for their guys up front. The box office stuff, if you really want to bust out the fine china for this group, go watch the Texas Tech game. We built it up. It's probably the two best teams, the two most talented teams in the Big 12 this season. They played a barn burner of a game that was a lot closer than the score indicates. And that Texas Tech defense might be the best front seven in college football. And you watch what they do to every other team on their schedule, live behind the line of scrimmage, parties at the quarterback. And that Utah team went out there and fought them tooth and nail the entire day. They created a great pocket for their quarterback, Devin Dampier. They opened up rush lanes even when it was difficult. They put an extra offensive line body on the field a ton. They're committed to this phase of the game. And so I think that game in particular, when it's great on great, when it's the tape that all the NFL scouts are going to put on when they're evaluating these guys, that's when you need to be at your best when your best is required. And I thought that group in particular, the toughness and the strain against an uncommon opponent is just one other way that's emblematic of what this group has put on tape all year long consistently.
AT needs some fine china for his chicken wings.
And some cloth napkins.
Someone get the man a napkin, please. All right, with both of you on here, it seems like the perfect time to tell the fans that are joining us right now, our next team on the honor roll. That's my drum. I don't have a drum. Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish. AT, take it away, buddy.
Man, this is Joe Rudolph's unit, and we all know famously what happened against Miami. Miami's done that to everybody. They got a couple creatures on that defensive line that made life hell for a couple of tackles. But since then, it's gotten really better. And what I've been really impressed with is the pass protection and shoring up front and what they've allowed C.J. Carr to do. This dude is going to be a 4-year starter and a phenom. Reminds a lot of us of Jimmy Clausen, the last 4-year starter that kind of came onto the scene. But it's really all about the run game and the running backs. And with Love and Jadarian Price, and it's a $2 you pick them, flip a coin on which one of those dudes is better. It's been really interesting and pleasing to the eye to watch them come along. It didn't start out the way that they wanted. A lot of Irish fans wanted those guys to get out. But to me, Notre Dame, Mike, is a unit that is emblematic of the fact that it takes 5 or 6 weeks to kind of hit your stride. They've been hit with injuries again at critical positions that's had guys playing in one position, maybe they should be playing another, and you have to be 5 that function as one. Well, when you have some moving pieces early, it takes whiles to get things acclimated, and that's exactly what's happened to them. They're playing their best ball now, which is where you want it to be, starting to peak now. It hopefully should be better by week 12. They've obviously got a really big challenge against a front 7 that can flat out rush the quarterback and get after you. Did a remarkable job USC did last week against Michigan. But I feel better about this Notre Dame offensive line at this point, certainly than I did in the first 2 weeks where it just wasn't there. We all thought they'd pick up where they left off. They didn't. Sometimes that happens. And I think that's important. And what we do as an award is that this is on the body of work to the season to date. If the season ended now and it were a 5 or 6 week season, we're grading everything. So some teams that started out hot that fall off, we take into account that they started out hot. Others start out slow like Notre Dame, but finish with a really nice 3 weeks like they have. That's why they earned their role on this honor roll. Mike, I'm interested to see what you've seen so far on tape from the Irish.
Yeah, AT, I think it's a great point. You know, the first 2 weeks of the season, yeah, you want to be at your best when your best is required against Reuben Bain, against Cassius Howell at Texas A&M in week 2 or week 3, I guess, back at home after the bye. But you also had an offense that changed shape a lot after last year, right? No more Riley Leonard as part of that quarterback run game. They're spreading it out and throwing it a lot more. And to be able to account for a different quarterback skill set, get used to each other again, and kind of change the way the offense functioned. That week 1 game against Miami, a lot of RPO stuff. They're trying to feel out what the quarterback can do. They settled in after that the next few weeks and have really found themselves. For this unit, I wrote down toughness, effort, and teamwork. And I think it starts in that interior. They lost Ashton Craig, who was a big part of that at center. Joe Otting going to be in against USC. But Billy Schrouth, one of your captains. Emil Wagner at right tackle, one of your captains. 2 guys that are leaders, part of a group that in pass protection, I think passes off games really well, sees things through one set of eyes. Joe Rudolph has always done a good job of having them prepared for whatever the defense is going to throw at you in terms of the stuff that requires a lot from the neck up. And I think you're absolutely right. That group has gotten better each week. They've played together, they've played tough, and they've paved lanes for those 2 phenomenal running backs.
All right, you guys, I got to ask this comment. Caroline coming in strong. Who is more likely to start on an O-line today? Is it AT or Mike? Which one, guys?
Man, I'd have to say
Mike.
I'd have to say Mike. You're going to give up some sacks either way. Look at 75 right there in the middle, y'all. What? Big stiffy. I was stiff back then. Big swerve. Oh, what? Let me get that end cut down. I see producer Amy is sprinkling in this game for what? Get on that horse and run, Golic. Let's go. That's that jailbreak screen. Lake Dawson now in that staff at Oklahoma doing a great job there. But y'all went in the dusty archives to pull that tape up.
How old is that footage, guys?
Oh, I hate how fast the footage starts to look old. I played in 2012, and my footage already looks like it was all in standard def. So it's hard to come by. But no, it's 18 a landslide. I have nightmares routinely that I'm showing up back to the facility now as a 36-year-old, and my old offensive line coach, Harry Heastan, is looking at me asking why I can't go out there and punch off a twist on the edge because I'm 260 pounds and 36 years old. So I'll give that to AT, please.
Can I suggest therapy? Maybe.
Honestly, probably not a bad idea.
It might be helpful. It might be helpful. Mike, thank you so much. I mean, just great information from you. We're going to let you go for a few minutes. We're going to bring in another Joe Moore Award voting committee member now. Who's coming in next? Cole, do we have you here?
I think you have me.
Welcome to the crew, ESPN, the SEC Network analyst. Cole, how'd you find the process, though, in narrowing down the teams this year? You don't have an easy job.
This has never been an easy job. It is time-consuming, as you stated a little bit earlier. I always laugh when you ask that question of how do people get the film in? How do you watch the film? How do you go about doing it? And it's essentially you get it in when you can fit it in. If it's 2 series at night, if it's waking up in the morning before you go to the office and getting 2 games in or a half in or one side of the ball in, you just try to squeeze it in as much as you can. But as Golic pointed out, we absolutely love it. It is not work. It is enjoyment, and it's just a little time consuming. But it's been difficult this year. The transfer portal is beginning to prove that one thing that we value as much as anything else with this award and with this position is making it extremely difficult, and that's continuity. A lot of these guys hadn't spent enough time together. They haven't practiced together. They hadn't been next to that guy that they're going out there and trying to perform a combo block with or trying to trade off a twist with in pass protection. And that nonverbal communication, Jenny, is not there like it has been with the groups that AT played on, that I played on, that Golic played on, that Jeff Schwartz played on. And you had been with those guys for 3, 4, 5 years, multiple battles, practice, games, and you knew what was going to happen. You knew when a guy needed help and when he didn't. We've lost a lot of that, so it has made our process a little bit more difficult. We've all had to sort of alter how we view a few things in today's offensive line play, and some of the schemes have a lot to do with that as well. As we talked about those service academies earlier, their technique and fundamentals are going to be totally different than some other teams like a Tennessee who's out here running essentially an air raid offense and not even in a 3-point stance 90-95% of the time.
Cole Cubelic, we're so excited that you're here joining us now. We're going to keep this in your wheelhouse. Let's reveal the 5 teams from the SEC and just in all of our jobs now and what we do week in and week out, talking to these coaches on how much the transfer portal has really changed the game in so many ways. But when you look at these SEC teams, this year's honor roll, we got Alabama, Missouri, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. What stands out about these units?
Well, the first thing is consistency, and even some of these have not had what we would reference as the epitome of consistency, but it has been a lot better than some of the other teams out there, and I think it continues to grow as this season goes on. I mentioned that transfer portal a little bit earlier, Jenny. You take a team like Vanderbilt, who last season knew the offense, knew who they were, what they were. They went out and got a couple battering rams at tackle and center and right guard and said, let's just go out there and try to move some people. And they legitimately play bully ball now, something that I'm not sure I've ever seen a Vanderbilt offensive line do in my history, playing or covering the Southeastern Conference. They're very different than what they've been. You have a team like Texas A&M, who I believe is trying to allow a quarterback to build himself as a pocket passer. So they're not allowed to go out there and push people around to the extent that some other teams are. But when they've been given that opportunity late in a few games and they've been able to turn that on, they've proven that they can be that kind of a group. They have a monster right tackle that can just absolutely bully people and push them off the football, whose brother was a fullback there. So that crown over name has been in Aggie land for a while. So, you know, if Big Brother plays fullback and you're 6'8", 330, you're probably going to be able to punish people on the football field. And Texas A&M does that. Alabama's a team that we know well. They've won this award multiple times. And they, through the transfer portal, a guy like Parker Brailsford, who got there 2 years ago, is absolutely the leader. We saw Tyler Booker, who's now with the Cowboys, sort of rub off him last year. He plays a more physical brand of ball than we saw him when he won this award as a Washington Husky 3 years ago, playing for Kalen DeBoer. And now he's out there trying to fight, scratch, and claw people on every down. First off, how could Alabama not be here when they're allowing Caden Proctor to catch the football and take direct snaps and hand him the football on multiple plays at 6'5", 370 pounds? Almost by default, we had to put him in just because of that. It's actually not a criteria, but it's fun to at least say when they're letting Big 74 do those things.
Add it to the list. Add it to the list.
100%. And I think Tennessee would sort of be one of the anomalies in this award. You look at how they align on every play. The wide receivers are 6 inches from both sidelines, and they're going to go fast. They've got a tempo that they're going to use at a furious pace. They're going to push the ball down the field. But make no mistake, 2 off seasons ago, Josh Heupel and his staff made a commitment to becoming more physical, using more big bodies on the field, being able to get north and south with that run game. And it's not just one that's now created by space, which they did going fast and trapping you in a certain defense so many times. They can actually line up and double team you and push you off the ball. They can pull and kick out your defensive end to where that space is physically opened up, by what they want to do to you against your will, as opposed to how they used to do that with formation and tempo.
It's really impressive. And the SEC.
AT, unmute yourself, sir.
I am unmuted, I think.
Also, while AT figures this out, I got a private message from Jonathan McGinty out there saying Caden Proctor is a dang cheat code.
Are we trying to get in front of 6'5", 370 to tackle him? I mean, I don't know many DBs or linebackers that are out there inviting that challenge. So we've already seen a couple individuals in the league dive at his ankles a few times this year. So we know exactly what was going through their mind, probably what will be going through ours as well.
Bro, they're making business decisions,
AT,
Cole.
you're still muted.
Am I still muted? What the hell is going on?
Also, who is the surprise team in the SEC? This is from Thomas.
Surprise team in the SEC. I don't know if there's a team that's really exceeded expectations on the positive end. Maybe on the other side of that, you would look at some teams that aren't living up to expectation. I thought Texas's offensive line would be better than it was. The Florida offensive line has been extremely inconsistent. We had high hopes for that one. Georgia still has one of the most talented offensive lines in college football, but they have been dealing with injuries, having to move guys from left tackle to right tackle. Right tackle hadn't been practicing. Drew Bobo at center has been one of their only mainstays. Now they're playing a true freshman, who, by the way, is like 6'8", 350, so you can kind of get away with that as a true freshman. And they still do some really good things, Jenny, on a very regular basis. It's just not quite as consistent as we've seen Georgia in years past. They've been really close to winning this award a couple of times, and this has been one of their more inconsistent years, and a lot of that has to do with injuries and youth.
It's crazy, Cole, because I think that's been one of the negative things that the portal's really done. And you started out giving a beautiful State of the Union, what's going on. But I'll say this, when I look at the offensive and defensive lines, particularly on the defensive side for Alabama and Georgia, their starters right now aren't as good 3 years later than their backups were back in the day. It's crazy just how much attrition there's been. And that's really kind of this era of portal parity that we're starting to see, where the ceiling comes down, the floor is coming up, and we're going to get a mess of all these 9-3 teams kind of big picture, but that's also impacted the offensive line. So when you have talent like Georgia does, but you have injuries, those injuries have a disproportionate effect now than they used to have back in the day. So this is something we're seeing not only on this level of the game, but also in the NFL. The GMs, scouts, players, dudes that I used to know that are just around the game a lot, guys that cover it for a living, are all saying the exact same thing.
Well, Aaron, we're used to sort of the offensive line, like we said, because guys who had been there 3, 4, and 5 years, you could plug and go with the next guy, because at least he had been getting those second-team reps or third-team reps the previous few years. He had an idea what to do. The guys behind him, guys in front of him had worked with him some. Take Georgia last year, for example. Their left guard last year is now with the Detroit Lions, playing extremely well for the Detroit Lions, by the way. He goes out of the lineup. Georgia is a different football team, not a different offensive line. Their entire team took a hit, and they didn't look the same once he was out of the lineup. And we've seen that with a couple of teams, not just in the SEC, but around college football. If you have that guy who just holds things together up front, physically, mentally, emotionally, is the leader of that group, and all of a sudden he's gone, it becomes problematic. Take Oklahoma last year. This was a group that had guys dinged up before the season, and Bill Bedenbaugh was having to practice with guys that weren't going to play and then play with guys that didn't practice together. So where does the continuity come from? Game reps turn into practice reps. Well, then you get beat up in the game. So then the guys playing can't practice again. Those guys get dinged. And all of a sudden it's just rotating chairs of who's actually going to be in the game trying to process things, play for you. It's got to be a little bit of a mess. And the teams that can manage it. Now, listen, it's not all negative. You take a team like Tennessee, they had a young man in Javonte Spraggins last year from Memphis who was essentially just a bar bouncer. He wanted to go fight on every play. Not technically, not fundamentally sound, but he was good for about 3 personal fouls a game. But he helped the attitude and demeanor of that offensive line. And also you had Mays at center, who was a mainstay at that spot, and they had to have in the lineup. Well, they lose those guys, so what do? You go get Sam Pendleton from Notre Dame. You go get Wendell Moe, who's a glorified sumo wrestler from Arizona. They might have more oomph this year than they did a season ago. So Lance Hurd is starting to come into his own at left tackle. They may be a bigger batter group than they were last season, holding on to just enough of what they had previously and then adding a little bit more.
It's interesting, man. What you're talking about, that depth, there's no easy answers either, because one of the things that Chris Cubelic is doing at Alabama is rotating 8 players with intention. He wants to get guys in and out. And you see that done every now and again, but it's becoming more commonplace. You used to do that because you were trying to figure out which starter you had, or you had a guy that was really out of shape. But it's not ideal. We've all heard the phrase, you want your 5 best on the field. That happened to me my senior year when I was a unanimous All-American in left guard, but they kicked me out to left tackle because I was the best available. That wasn't my natural spot. I wanted Dan Lombardi in a right-handed stance because I could never get comfortable in a left-handed stance. Thankfully, we only pass block like 13 times a game, so I could get away with it. But we're seeing things now where the coaching community is trying to react to what's happening around them, and we haven't figured it out quite yet. But we'll get there, because if this sport's done anything, it's been finding ways to adapt, and I'm sure our position will get there as well.
Well, Chris has done a great job with that O-line at Alabama. You think about what they lost in Tyler Booker last year and having some right tackle issues early this year, having to rotate a little bit. But I'll go back to last season. And I had that game against Vanderbilt, and all of a sudden, Gino Vandemark was splitting first-team reps in warmups. And I was standing next to Kalen DeBoer, and I said, well, should we expect 56 to be in? It looks like he's getting some run here. He goes, listen, it has nothing to do with anybody else. He's been practicing his rear end off. We love what he's doing in practice. He deserves to play. We also saw this with quarterback when they played ULM earlier this year, and they've done it with other positions. Michael Carroll's a true freshman at right tackle who has started playing more and more this year. I think they understand, AT, we've got to start getting these guys in, number one. Number two, if you come out here and handle your business in practice, you might not be the best option at right guard or right tackle or left tackle, but we're going to get you real snaps. We're not going to pretend like you're a guy that's important. We're going to actually let you play meaningful downs. I think having Ryan Grubb on staff, a former offensive line coach, he knows the value in not just having 5 offensive line to get you through a season. And Kalen DeBoer and he being together as long as they have, you know they've had those conversations. Hey, let's get 56 in the game. Let's get the freshmen in the game. Let's let them understand the speed, the physicality of what this is going to be, because we all know we're going to need him at some point in time, and it's not in a luxury fashion. We're going to need him to actually be the guy for an extended period of time.
There's no speed like game speed, that's for sure. I want to touch upon a team that you just mentioned, and that's Vanderbilt making the list. So, Cole, if you want to kick us off on what you've seen out of Vandy this year.
Well, I just want to say this first. AT said something a minute ago that like a lot of people won't really resonate with, and that's playing in a right-handed stance. Vanderbilt does something, Jenny, that you will not see many offensive lines do anymore. They actually have a strong side and a quick side. I did this early in my career at Auburn, and I can tell you it complicates things. Number one, like AT just said, you're going right-handed stance on the right side, left-handed stance on the left side. Your right foot's back if you're the tackle on the right side. Your left foot's back when you're on the left side. That means your push foot, that means your foot that you change direction with, are totally different. Your body control, the arms that you use to stab and to redirect, they're going to be different. Your hat placement's going to be different in runs. Vanderbilt actually does that. They flip their offensive line, and they deserve credit for that, because that's not an easy thing to do. It's why you don't see a lot of teams do it. Tempo has a lot to do with that also. The teams that go fast, they realize they can't go strong and quick. They just need to stay on the same side all the time. But it's a lot easier to just be a right guard. It's a lot easier to just be a left tackle than a right tackle and a left tackle, depending on where you are in the film or where your tight end is going to be lined up on each and every play. But as I stated before, this is a very unique offense. Tim Beck does not get enough credit for what he does with this offense. And he went and reunited with his offensive line coach from a couple of years back, somebody that was with Chris Alt at Nevada when they started running the pistol, and Kaepernick and those guys were just pounding people. So he knows where they want to be, how they want to do, and what they want to do with it. And I'm going to tell you, they went and got Bryce Henderson. I'll just tell you a story from Roman Harper on Read and React that we do on the SEC Network on Monday nights. I was going to point out the Vanderbilt offensive line, and we usually get 4 plays to choose from. And so our producer says, pick 3 plays that you want to show why Vanderbilt's different. Well, Diego Pavia is still the quarterback. Eli Stowers is still the tight end. They still have the same running backs and pretty much receivers that they did a year ago. I wanted to show how some of these offensive linemen are a little bit different. They went and got him. They got Jordan White at center, who's playing next to one of his teammates at Liberty from a couple of years ago. And I showed 3 plays, and Roman said, let me have one. I just want 1 play. I said, cool, dude, go up there and get it. And so Roman takes a recruiting photograph of Bryce Henderson with his jersey tucked up under his pads, and his belly tattoos are showing, and it's got his big ponytail hanging down in the back. And then he's got him walking off the field with his gut hanging over his belt and all his tats coming down his arms. And Roman says, Vanderbilt ain't never had guys like that before. That's why they're different. And I understand that that's something he was doing to kind of be funny. But when you watch them on the field, they have not had guys who can operate like this before at 6'5", 320 or at 6'3", 310. They are physically what an SEC offensive line is supposed to look like. I call games with a former Vandy quarterback every Saturday night, and Jordan Rodgers loves telling the stories about how his right tackle was 252 and his left tackle was 258. And at times it got him killed, just about. So this is a group that went out. They found guys that like to punish defensive linemen and that look the part of SEC offensive linemen as well.
There's no doubt. And you put the Alabama tape on, 55, gets a pancake, accelerates on contact. In this position, regardless of what side you're playing on, is about kicking people's ass. And my God, what a way to start the game. Getting
First play of the game, AT. First play of the game.
First play.
Yep.
So there's a question we have from, what's that, Adam Zucker? He says, Cole, what was that ice cream spot next to Saws in Homewood?
That's Edgewood Creamery. My wife and I were there last night. They have so my two favorite ice creams are, and AT always loves saying, this is always like fat kid choosing his favorite flavor of ice cream.
That's what it is.
Well, my two are going to be cookies and cream and mint chocolate chip. They have a mint cookies and cream ice cream at Edgewood Creamery. And so Tuesday date night with my wife last night, we rolled in afterwards, got the double scoop and the waffle cone. There it is. Yes, Edgewood Creamery. Zook and I may or may not have had an ice cream date there one time.
That sounds amazing. I'm jealous. I want ice cream right now. We're going to keep things moving. We got 3 teams.
So does everybody else on this broadcast, by the way, Jenny. That's just like inherently us.
No
That's
doubt.
just like what we are.
We got the ACC coming up next, all right? So 4 teams this year. We got Duke, Florida State, Georgia Tech, and Miami, of course. So how did these units stand out above the rest?
Well, I'll start with Duke because they're coached by Jeff Nord, and this was a late ad. Brandon Thorne kind of put them on the radar, and that's what we do. We kind of separate the country regionally. We all have natural predispositions. Obviously, Cole's an expert on the SEC. We all watch everything, but we kind of give each person their own region. But Brandon was studying their right tackle for the stuff that he does on Trench Warfare, the great Substack that he's got. Make sure you subscribe to that. And he was watching their right tackle. He's like, man, we got to get some more eyes on Duke. So that's the way that our process works. It's like, hey, I'm seeing some stuff I like. I don't know if I'm biased. Other guys watch it. Let me know what you think. I went and watched it, and here are my notes. And I looked at the Syracuse Cal and NC State game. These guys, teamwork, technique, and outside zone combos were great. They're a physically big unit that looks to impose their will. Their play side combos and outside zone and backside combos and inside zone really stood out. Not as athletic as some of the other units, but make up for it with overall effort and commitment to their techniques. They remind me of the O-lines that BYU had back in the day. On the Syracuse tape, play 12, there was a touchdown on a counter. There was a play side double team by the right tackle. He got all goofed up. His shoulders were turned the wrong way, but he was able to get it done, and they ended up scoring. That was an effort play for me. Against Cal, play 7, the center accelerating on contact. He gets a pancake. The left tackle had really good hands. The left guard really strained. After initial stalemate, he got strained, but soon as the defender let go to try to make the tackle, he accelerated on contact and was able to get the block. The defender fell backward. It was kind of a half pancake, but those are tells of really well-coached offensive lines. Play 12, the left tackle, for whatever reason, was playing right tackle, gets away with a hold, but the reason I point that out is because my man knew when to let go, and there's an art to that, and he kind of spun him around, didn't put his hands up, and got away with it. Play 18 against NC State, there was a double pancake on a play side zone. Both the center and the right guard got pancakes on the linebacker run-through, and that really stood out. The Florida State Seminoles, coached by Herb Hand, been the same 5 starters for the first 5 games. They had another one for the 6th game, 6 starters this season. They're not an overly physical unit, but they really jumped on to me because they didn't flinch against Alabama. Now, we knew that Alabama's defense didn't give the greatest effort. We know that Florida State hasn't played well these last 2 weeks, but that offense cannot go and does not go, and that offensive line hasn't performed. So when you judge their body of work over the entire season and you average it out, they certainly earned their way onto this list. Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, man, what can we say about Brent Key? I first saw Brent back in the UCF days when he's with George O'Leary, and I was watching their offensive lines. I'm like, these dudes are rolling cats up. So when I would go down there to call the games, I'd roll into his office. We just got a chance to know each other. Then he got let go there. I saw him down at the Senior Bowl, and we were standing outside. He was making the rounds. He was looking for a job. He was all disheveled. And I said, man, don't you worry, Brent. Cream always rises to the top, brother. And that's exactly what happened. That night, Nick Saban gave him a call, and he got hired on at Alabama, and the rest is history. This unit embodies what it is that Brent Key does from an offensive line standpoint. Now, Jeep Wade is their O-line coach, but they are physical. They are tone setters. They've got a guard that may be as good as there is in the country in Kalen Rutledge. This is a really well-coached physical unit. The Miami Hurricanes, Alex Mirabal and Mario Cristobal kind of share that unit. They're number 1 in the ACC and number 7 nationally in tackles for loss allowed, just a little more than 3 plays or 3 tackles for loss per game. So they get plays started. There's not a lot of free runners. They come really well together on their combo blocks, on their gap schemes, on their play side and backside when they're running their zone stuff. They are physically big and try to mash people. It's just a really physical unit. So what stood out to me was their toughness, their finishing, and their teamwork. My notes were that they're a big physical unit that looks to impose its will and punish its opponents in the process. They're built like what some of the past winners have looked like, Cole. What have you seen from the ACC?
Well, I'm going to stick right there with Miami because you put them on film and you see Francis Maliaga, who does things physically that I'm not sure we've seen an offensive lineman do in college, maybe since Panay Sewell or Quentin Nelson. Just the strength of when he makes contact with defenders and you see that helmet pop back and you see the defender immediately go the opposite direction that they're not intending to go, yet beautifully able to move his feet and change direction and pass protection. I think the addition of Brockemeyer at center for them has been fantastic. He's a guy that can really sneak in on those combo blocks when they're running their inside zone and duo plays to be able to get north and south. And Carson Beck's not going to be able to do the things that he's done in the pocket if this team didn't know how to pass protect. They trade off games extremely well. They do offer that blunt force trauma, but when they get in pass pro AT, they know how to operate, manage, and work through things. They know how to sort things out. They don't get stuck maybe sticking with a penetrator and not going around and catching up with the loop man. They work together extremely well. It's something you would expect from one of the best offensive line coaches in college football and from a head coach in Mario Cristobal that's a former offensive lineman.
Cole, thank you so much. We really appreciate you here. We are going to bring in one more voting committee member on the line. Joining us now, Greg Hudson, 25-year football coach, and maybe most importantly, definitely most importantly, Aaron's graduate assistant at Notre Dame. I spent 10 years on the road with this guy, but I'm sure you have some stories. What was AT like?
You both have some stories.
Well, if I'm going to talk about Aaron Taylor, I might try to look like him. So
Let's go.
So
Poor
and I shaved my head. Usually I have a mullet, but Aaron came in just like he is now. He was full of personality. He was a lot of fun. He was a kid from California, so he was a fish out of water for a little bit in South Bend, Indiana, and that's a tough place to spend a lot of time. Especially, he had no idea what a February was like in South Bend, Indiana.
No, I didn't.
Probably was on his way out, and. But then he really grew into a man and a great leader and a great captain. And it was fun to watch him grow, but then it was really fun. I got to learn how to coach offensive line from Joe Moore, but I also got a chance to see what he was coaching get done right for that year. And that was a big advantage.
I love it. That's incredibly special. The look that you have right now is just absolute perfection.
Well, sometimes when he's on CBS, he changes his look up and goes to the goal.
Where'd you go to freeglasses.com? What the hell?
Right, so
I called your wife and she told me what store you get them at, and I had them FedExed in just for the show.
Strong. I love it. All right, let's talk about the Big Ten. This is a team that, a conference that I'm super comfortable with. I get the honor of chatting with a lot of these O linemen throughout the season, and we got 7 teams this year in the Big Ten that are being honored. Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, USC, and Washington. Guys, what makes this group so impressive?
I'll take the first crack here, and then we'll get into it.
You want to take it away?
Yeah, I'll take the first crack here. What's interesting and notable is that there's 7 units, and this is the biggest cluster of teams that we've had, and 3 of the 4 new additions into the Big Ten Conference are on this list in Oregon, USC, and Washington. And honestly, the way that UCLA's played these last 2 weeks, we looked at them really hard, but the first part of the season was so dismal, it was hard. We had some discussions about whether or not we wanted to grandfather them in and recognize what they did as of late, but that's just not the way that this process works. So unfortunately, UCLA didn't make it. But just because they're not on the midseason honor roll doesn't mean that they can't be one of the best 8 to 14, which is what we're going to announce on November 5th for the semifinalists. So starting with Indiana, man, we all saw that this Indiana Hoosier team is for real this last weekend. I was in Eugene in Autzen Stadium. There were 2 really good offensive lines in that stadium. Indiana might have outperformed Oregon, considering that Indiana's only given up 6 sacks on the season, and Oregon gave up 6 sacks last Saturday. So they're just a well-coached unit by Bob Bostad. That was a point of emphasis. They struggled on the road against elite competition, losing to Notre Dame and Ohio State. One of the reasons why was because they had a good but not talented and physical offensive line. Well, they have changed that. This Indiana team is built to go much deeper into the playoffs this year because of the lines of scrimmage. That front 7 is for real, y'all. For real, for real. But so is this offensive line. And it's going to be fun to watch this unit continue to evolve because Fernando Mendoza and those 2 backs they have are really good beneficiaries, are those very talented wide receivers. But Iowa's offensive line, coached by George Barnett. Greg, you and I had a chance this summer to be able to go to Iowa City, and it's like a time warp, man. We go around all over the country, look at these offensive lines, but there's things we see at Iowa. There's things we hear at Iowa that we don't see and hear other places. Explain what we saw then and what we've seen this season and how that preseason training camp preparation has shown up on film this year so far.
Yes, it's easy to see, and it was refreshing to go there and see the way they practice and how they drill everything. I wrote down wash, rinse, dry, repeat. That's what Iowa does. They just keep doing the same thing over and over again up front. Their toughness, their technique, their togetherness, it stands out. They also do something. They're really good at using the top of the pad when they block. They use their shoulders. They get into people. They also use their eyes well. They're looking for the next block. They're looking where they're going. And that takes them to a level of strain and downfield blocking that you don't see all the time. These guys work to create holes. And when they're doing one-on-one blocking, and then when they get in the team period, you can hear a good block. You can hear the pads hit right. You can't understand that unless you're right there up close to it, but you can hear a good block, and that's what Iowa does just about all the time when they're one-on-one on guys or they're coming down on a double team. But these guys are relentless when they play football. They're going to try to move you from point A to point B against your will every single snap, and then they're going to come back and try to do it again. And you know what's coming, and they're just going to keep bringing it to you.
Yeah, I love it, man. We'll rip through the rest of these, and please smash that subscribe button like it's the last donut in the box. The simplest way that you guys can help us, we're a nonprofit organization, is to simply subscribe. You don't get emails. We don't contact you with information. It just lets the algorithm know that you like us and that you want to interact with us, and then we get rewarded from that. So keep doing it. Chunky but hunky, as they say. I love it. I see a De La Rose, Matt. So Michigan, baby. Offensive line coach Grant Newsome. Juan Castillo is also there, which is a Joe Moore disciple. Another story for another time, but how Joe met Juan is incredible, and it just is a testament to what this position is about. Michigan won this award back-to-back years. They were the first 2-time winner. Sharon Moore was their offensive line coach underneath Jim Harbaugh when they won. So it's not quite to the standard that it was then, because that was elite and those units were just special and had special talent. But the bones are there, and you can see it with Michigan. Now, it was interesting. They got stopped and schemed up pretty well, especially when Justice Haynes went out against USC. But prior to that, they were dominant. with explosive runs every single week against every single people. Michigan's been struggling with injuries a lot, and that's impacted the way that they've played overall. But when you look at the toughness, the physicality, the willingness, the mindset, the effort, the consistency with which they approach and attack things, it's all there on tape to see. Their contemporary, a little bit farther south, the team down south, the antithesis of the team up north is the Ohio State Buckeyes. One of the pleasant surprises of this year, in my opinion, Tyler Bowen has done a remarkable job. And I thought last year when Ohio State's offensive line got banged up, we saw how much that impacted their offense. But of all the units, Oregon, Texas, Notre Dame, that also lost offensive linemen, I felt Ohio State navigated the best, particularly towards the end, and they were winning because of that unit versus despite them, which is what happened midseason when all those injuries took place. Teamwork, effort, and technique. I think they short movement really well, which means they're playing through one set of eyes. They're coached. They know what to expect, and they drill it so that when somebody slants across their face, they know to chase it or they know not to chase it because somebody else is coming. They do an exceptional job of that. They work their hands really well, and they accelerate on contact. And, Greg, we have Oregon and USC here. I love the Ducks. I love how physical they are. Alik Terry does a remarkable job there. I think they're tough, give great effort, teamwork, and finishing and play consistent. And then USC has been a bright spot with Zach Hansen. What can you tell us overall about the Big Ten and maybe a little bit of what you've seen from those last two units?
Well, with USC, they're the all-rotate team with what's going on. That they've had a triage unit and a bunch of injuries, but the performance they put together against Michigan, and we know the kind of defense that they have, that's starting to come together for them over and over. And the one thing that they do well is they can get on people, and when they get on the move, they seem to block a lot better too. And they're starting to figure that out. I think when they've had a couple setbacks, the first thing you do is you cut down what you're doing, and then that way that gives the offensive line more opportunity to block the same thing and hopefully see the same fronts. Because some of these teams, like you said, Michigan, when you're watching the end zone copy and you see 11 guys in the screen, that's an 11-man front, and they have that a lot, and that they don't see the same front back to back, and it's the same way with USC. Teams are going to jack up against a USC and Ohio State and Michigan, and that's going to be their Super Bowl sometimes. So they got to be on point every single Saturday. And when you're rotating guys in and you got guys banged up, not only do you have the portal non-continuity, but now you're putting a guy in there that wasn't a starter at the beginning of the year, which is stressing out the guy next to him, and that makes it tough. So to see them excelling and getting better as the year goes on, they're doing a good job coaching.
Hey, Greg, just want to ask quickly, too, about Washington. What sticks out about their unit?
Washington's good because they play as a unit, and they sort of reminded me when I looked at them. They have an Iowa look to them because they all look the same. They're big guys. I like the way they slide in their pass protection. They try to use the top of the pad. They're in sync on their technique, and they're in sync on their fundamentals. I like the way they do their double teams. And like I said, they all look the same. They also, when they get out and they start pulling, those guys get on the hoof and they get going, and they're trying to look somebody up.
Yeah, they've had to deal with some injuries as well, especially these last couple of weeks. They have rotated basically 7 offensive linemen throughout the season. It's impacted them. The level of play has dropped a little bit. But to your point, when you lose starters and have to have the next guy step up, it can be catastrophic. That hasn't been the case for Washington, and that's the sign of a really well-coached unit. They won this award 2 years ago, back in 2023. So there's the bones and the DNA. A lot has changed, obviously, since all of that blown up. But what has stayed consistent in Washington is a blue blood program that's been around a long time, that's had some consistent offensive linemen that have been able to come through there. And we're starting to see that a little bit in year 2 with this new staff. So that's it, top to bottom, the 24 units from the Joe Moore Award. We finished with the 7 from the Big Ten: Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, USC, and Washington. Congratulations to these units. The next milestone here is going to be November 5th to go to the semifinalists, and the bar is going to raise considerably here. The rule of thumb that we use for the honor roll is if there's something that really sticks out, one of the criteria they do really well, really consistently, and maybe do some of the other criteria some of the time. When we get to the semifinalists, we better see most of the criteria most of the time. Historically, it's been 8 to 14 units. So to go down from 24 down to 8 is cutting things by 2/3. So again, 3 to 4 weeks more of opportunities to put your best on tape. But now's where it starts to get fun, fellas, because this is where the cream starts to rise to the top.
The cream rising to the top. Let's put all of the teams up right now as Mike's back with us as well. And you take a look at these 24 total teams right now, the midseason honor roll. Some final thoughts. Let's start, AT. We'll let you kick it off.
Well, I want to congratulate all these offensive line coaches. Cole did a beautiful job of laying out what the landscape is, and our positions maybe been impacted the most from the transients in the portal because we're the most skilled position on the field except by maybe the quarterback. And the reason why is because we're playing against players that are equally as strong as us, but typically more quick and more athletic. So we've got to be refined in our technique. And that takes coordination, it takes patience, and it takes commitment.
No
Mike,
question. I completely agree. I think the thing that's been the most humbling looking at how the landscape has changed relative to offensive line is when I talk to a lot of coaches getting ready for these games, the amount of times where it's the offensive linemen that end up being the ones that are the voices on that team, the leaders trying to bring people together, the groups that are helping all those new bodies and guys gel. This position group is about being the tip of the spear. We always believe that rolling up to the line of scrimmage 10 foot tall and bulletproof is the group that our team could rely on, was the way that we set the tone for our entire organization. And so even in this day and age where you got some of the lines that are portaling in 5 new guys every year, you got massive turnover, these guys still take that responsibility incredibly seriously. These units have been at or near the top of that, and we're excited to watch how these guys separate going forward.
Greg?
Yeah, I enjoyed watching all these guys, and the one thing you get when you whittle it down a little bit is you start seeing the consistency of how these teams are improving and how they're starting to gel as a unit. You know, when I look at an offensive lineman, sometimes you want to know what's their willingness to suffer. How much work are they going to put in? This is a brutal position to play. You got to coach guys or block guys when you're moving backwards first, and it takes some time. That's why I think football in September has not been as good as it's been in past Septembers. And now we're seeing teams in October start to gel. But the cream rises to the top, and there's a lot of teams that I would love to see practice because you watch what they do on film, you watch what their technique is, and these guys are all starting to look the same more and more because they're all exemplifying the characteristics of the Joe Moore Award.
Well, for everyone that's still with us right now, we thank you for joining us. I want to make sure that you click that little subscribe button. Please follow along. Again, it doesn't do anything for you, just helps us all out, helps everyone that's on this chat. So everyone subscribe, and we're going to do more fun things, like the fact that we put a poll up there about the whole can you put ketchup on a hot dog scenario? And the winner is 52%. Yes, you can.
Oh.
33%. No. Only mustard, 15%. Just ended the poll. I have to say that there's probably a lot of people from Chicago in here because I know that you cannot put ketchup on a hot dog if you're in Chicago.
That's where I got it.
Yeah.
That's where I got it.
Connecticut, we put ketchup and mustard. I'm just going to throw it out there. Get a little crazy. Who knows?
We're getting towards the end, or we'll have the conversation next time about whether or not you could put pineapple on pizza. I got some strong takes there, too.
Had it last night for dinner. Pineapple on pizza.
I'm with it.
All right, everyone, please follow, subscribe. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you all, really, for tuning in for this last hour and for the live announcement of the 2025 Joe Moore Award Honor Roll. Be sure to catch the weekly show, Trench Life, Thursdays, right here on the YouTube channel. If you like and subscribe, you'll get a little reminder about it, so that's fantastic. Aaron Taylor, we love you. We're so proud of you for everything that you've done, for putting this all together, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So, AT, congratulations on a great evening.
I appreciate it, man. And congratulations to the players and the men that coach them. You guys are what makes this game go. We are so proud of you and what you do. We're watching. We are watching. Keep up the good work.
Watch you with my glasses.
All right. Thank you all. I hope you all have a great